Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbard Gaming. As I record this, my birthday was just a couple of days ago, and I figured what better time to take a look back at a bunch of classic Golden Age arcade games and tell you what some of my favorites are. Yes, in fact, I've got one for each decade of my age. Now, some of you out there think I'm pretty young for some reason, but if you think that,
well, you're wrong!
As you can clearly now tell, I am old as dirt. Anyway, these are not the top 5 be-all, end-all, indisputable best arcade games ever. These are 5 of my favorite games from the era, and a few of which never really got the attention that they deserved. All of these games were released in the early 1980s, and I could have easily made a top 50 or a top 100 list, but games tend to get lost in lists like those, and I'd like you to actually remember these after I'm done talking about them. So join me for a smaller, hopefully more memorable look into 5 of my favorite Golden Age arcade games, including one that never got a home system port or conversion to any platform back in its day. Let's get on with it. Let's begin this list with an undeniable classic, Frogger. This game was developed by Konami and distributed in the US and some other parts of the world by Sega/Gremlin back in those days. So if you've seen a Sega logo on Frogger, well, that's why. Like so many of these Golden Age arcade games, Frogger is quick, simple fun. The music you're greeted with when you start is just so sweet and innocent, in stark contrast to the deep and scary death noise that utterly dominates the soundscape when you lose a life. And hey, Frogger is in the cultural zeitgeist enough that it even made it into that episode of Seinfeld where George wants to recover the very cabinet that he played as a teenager at a pizza place. Classic. The point of Frogger is to get your little frog into one of the homes, or holes.
You mean the holes?
Up at the top of the screen. Fill all 5 holes with frogs, and you start over with faster and more difficult obstacles. These old games are all about score, and you can get extra points by either picking up a lady frog and bringing her into the home with you, or by getting into one of the homes that has a fly in it. Almost anyone will be able to clear level 1, but I can't tell you how many people in my decades of life that I've seen fail miserably starting right when level 2 begins. So many frogs' lives snuffed out in their prime. When will the killing stop? Oh well, what can you do? Pour one out for the dead little frogs, I guess. Anyway, Frogger is a great little game that still holds up well today as a quick pick up and play game. It's so simple that it doesn't even have any action buttons. It's just you and the joystick or whatever your input device of choice may be. Frogger is a game of reflexes, planning, and skill. Now, this video is strictly arcade games only, so I'm not going to show you any of the many home ports that exist of Frogger, but I will mention that Frogger famously made its way onto loads of home consoles and computers, and most modern collections even include the arcade version. So if you've never played Frogger, I suggest tracking it down and giving it a shot. If you're a gamer with a pulse, you'll probably enjoy this crowd pleaser, at least in about 15-minute bursts. Almost everybody knows the original Qbert, the little foul-mouthed hairball with a giant tube nose that jumped on cubes arranged in a pyramid formation to turn all of them the same color. While Qbert is a really fun game, it's not what I want to show you here today. No, instead, let's take a look at its much lesser-known sequel, Qbert Qubes, spelled with a Q. I used to play this one during its short arcade run at a local department store that always had a selection of the latest arcade games. I was 7 years old when this one came out, and yeah, I was just about tall enough to be able to effectively reach the joystick and play the game. And I'll explain why that matters in just a minute. First up, let me explain the game itself. Instead of a pyramid this time, Qbert faces cubes that are arranged in a diamond formation, but they're all separated, and they rotate depending on the direction that Qbert jumps off of them. You clear levels by making lines tic-tac-toe style. Now, the one exception are bonus rounds that challenge you to rotate as many cubes to the correct orientation as quickly as you can, and you get more points for each successive one that you get correct. Now, the early levels will end when you've made one complete matching cube line in any direction. Later levels require additional lines, so you might have to do 2 instead of 1. There are once again several baddies that try to interfere with old Qbert, and way more than the original. And his main nemesis Coily from the original Qbert is gone this time, and has been replaced by a new primary foil named Rat-a-tat-tat. But for all intents and purposes, he works just like Coily and even has the same sound effect. Conceptually, Qbert Qubes is a little harder to grasp than the very simple Qbert, and it also came out just right about the time that the game games market was crashing here in the US, so it never achieved the popularity of the original. But I loved this game. Let me tell you a quick personal story about it. My mother would take us to the store to go shopping and let me and my younger brother play the arcade games, and she would come and get us when she was done. Yeah, you could do things like that back in those days. Anyway, one day I was playing Bert Qubes and I was doing really good at it. I was in the zone. How in the zone? There was a crowd of probably about 10 to 15 people surrounding me, watching me just slaughter this game, saying things like I was so much better than they were, and that I was a prodigy. And I didn't even know what the word prodigy meant at that time. And I was certainly no prodigy. Eventually, I heard my mom call my name while I was playing, and I had to yell back that I was here. She was clearly scared and didn't expect me to be surrounded by a giant crowd of onlookers that completely blocked her view of me. They all cleared out a little bit when they saw my mother. They let her stand next to me as I was playing and finishing up, and I went on for about another 5 to 10 minutes before I finally died and ran out of lives. Anyway, that's my Bert Qubes story. Now, I liked this game a lot back in the day. It had only one port to the Atari 2600, and there was one that was developed for the ColecoVision, but canceled before it was released. So this is one that most people never played either in the arcade or at home. Aside from unofficial emulation, you can check this game out in some arcade collections these days, and it is absolutely worth playing. Give it a shot for a few minutes. As long as you can get the concept down, this is absolutely still a lot of fun today, and I played it quite a while for this video. Mr. Do is another classic, and unlike the last game that we looked at, many of you actually have probably played this one. It's another digging game from the early 1980s that takes some minor inspiration from Namco's Dig Dug, but it's much faster and has multiple ways to complete a level. You can collect or dig up all the cherries, you can kill all the monsters, you can collect all the letters to spell out the word extra, or if you're super lucky, you can pick up a diamond, which also gives you an additional credit in the machine to play another game. That was something you didn't see often in arcade games. What separated Mr. Do from Dig Dug was that it was just so much faster and had much more varied gameplay. Now, much like with Dig Dug, there were two ways you could take out enemies. In this one, though, instead of pumping them up, you could fire a power ball at them to destroy them. The power ball would bounce all around the holes or tunnels that you dug and go on all sorts of crazy angles. After it vanished, it would take it a while to recharge. You could also drop an apple on enemies' heads, which works sort of like the rocks in Dig Dug, except they're a little more interactive and you can push them, and also certain enemies would actually eat the dropped apples. Mr. Do is just way more chaotic than Namco's classic in my opinion, and that just makes it more fun to play. In fact, I played this one probably for about 2 hours while recording footage for this video, which surprised even me. I just got really into it. And while I'd absolutely love to be the person telling you this for the very first time, I know chances are I'm not, but each of the levels has the level number carved into it. Here's level 2, level 3, etc. There are 10 unique levels in the original version that each have 4 difficulty variations. Now, unlike Bert Qubes, Mr. Do was ported to a whole bunch of systems, and I used to play this one mainly on the Commodore 64 at home back in the day, but I spent a lot of time playing the arcade one. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Mr. Do's many sequels. All of them were very different games from the original here, but they were all pretty good. Mr. Do's Castle was the best of the sequels and also the first. But Mr. Do's Wild Ride and Do Run Run were fun little games in their own right. The last game in the series to come out was the Neo Geo title Neo Mr. Do, which is very much like the original, only despite the more powerful hardware of the Neo Geo, it is just kinda ugly. It's still a good game though, it's still worth playing, and maybe I'll show you that one some other time. But I digress. This is one case where the original game in the series still holds up the best. And if you've never tried the original Mr. Do because it was before your time, or you just never ran into it back in the day, absolutely give it a shot. You may just find a new favorite classic arcade game. And if it's been a long time since you played it, play it again. You'll be surprised at how much fun it still is. Here's Williams' 1982 arcade classic, Robotron 2084. Now it's funny, when I was a kid, I didn't see this one in many arcades, so I hadn't played the arcade version a whole lot when it was brand new. I mainly played this on C64 or when I was a little older on the Atari 7800. Robotron is pretty much the prototypical twin-stick shooter. It's become a whole genre now. Now, Robotron wasn't the very first twin-stick shooter. It was predated by some games that came out in the 70s. But it was the game that popularized the specialized control scheme that would later return in titles like Smash TV and Total Carnage before becoming a mainstay on home systems in the age of dual analog stick controllers. Robotron 2084 has you taking control of a guy who can fire lasers in 8 directions and walk in 8 directions. The kicker was your firing direction was totally independent of your walking direction. And this game was intense. It may be the most intense of all the Golden Age shooter games. As it goes on, the screen just gets completely loaded with friendly characters, enemies, projectiles, and crazy effects. At times, it gets hard to see what's going on and keep everything straight. But hey, the absolute chaos was a major part of this game's appeal, and one could argue it was the point. Some classic Williams games like Defender and Stargate, they just never really gelled with me. I played them and thought they were kind of fun, but they never kept me coming back again and again in the same way that Robotron did, partly because they had more complicated play mechanics and control schemes, especially in the arcade. Robotron, on the other hand, keeps things really simple. Just shoot all the robots, except the invincible ones, to clear a level. Try and save as many people as you can in the process to get the highest score. But saving people is a secondary goal, not the main one. Just blast those robots. And there were plenty of home versions of Robotron, and many of the early ones were lacking in the gameplay department because either they were too slow, or the control schemes just didn't work, or both. The Atari 7800 version was probably the best of the early bunch, especially if you played with the 2-joystick control scheme for that more arcade-like experience. Newer collections have the benefit of working on systems that have 2 joysticks on all of their primary controllers. So if you've never played Robotron and you really like intense shooters, this is one you absolutely shouldn't miss. I personally think this is still a superior game to newer genre releases like Smash TV. Alrighty, here we go. My number 1, my numero uno, my big cheese. This is Zookeeper. And man, I can't tell you how much I love this game. I loved it back in the day. I love it now. As far as classic games go, it's always been one of my favorites. The gameplay, it's a little hard to explain. For most levels, there's a cage in the middle. Animals have escaped. Your job is to build a wall around the cage and keep as many animals inside the wall as possible and put in ones that got away. Almost like Gyrus, you run around the outside of the cage, but instead of moving in a smooth circle, you run in a rectangle around it. You can run along the top, the bottom, or the left and right sides. And as you run, you drop a layer of bricks below you. As the animals approach the bricks, they can chew part of them away and escape. If they get outside the bricks, you have to avoid them by running away or jumping over them with gaming's craziest jump. You'll see what I mean. You also get more points depending on how many animals you jump over at a time. At some time in each level, a net appears. You can grab it to turn the tables on the animals and toss them back into the center cage area. Each of these levels is timed and ends when the timer runs out. If you die though, the timer starts over from the very beginning. Whew, that's a lot of explanation, but the game is really easy to understand as soon as you start playing. But the thing is, Zookeeper actually gets even a little more complicated than that with 2 other playstyles. Every few levels, there's a platform level with moving platforms, where you have to reach the top while a monkey in a tree throws coconuts at you. You have to continually jump up, and the jump and bouncing physics here are kind of crazy, but once you get the hang of it, these levels will become second nature. They will get absolutely filled with stuff though. The final playstyle of the game are these levels where you can earn an extra life. You have to jump over a whole bunch of animals on a single plane and time your jumps so you can get over all of them and then the cage at the end to reach an escalator. You do this back and forth twice until you reach your lady there at the top and get a bunch of lovely hearts and an extra life. Or fail and die enough times that you run out of lives. Whatever. That's right, even in the bonus round you can easily die and get a game over. Zookeeper was never ported to any contemporary home systems at all back in the day. That means no consoles and no home computers. And that was a total bummer. But thanks to the magic of emulation and FPGAs, you can enjoy Zookeeper once again. It's also on some newer Taito arcade collections. Now, there had been an official port in development for the Atari 2600 in the early 80s, but it was never released. However, in 2018, someone did develop and release a homebrew version of Zookeeper for the Atari 2600, and it's actually pretty impressive. Zookeeper is another game that is very intense, and the difficulty ratchets up pretty quickly. If you like games that really test your skills and that you can play over and over to try and get that elusive high score, then Zookeeper is for you. If you missed Zookeeper, I strongly recommend it to everyone. You might find it a smidge disorienting at first, but give it just a few minutes and I'm sure it'll win you over. Alrighty, so that's 5 of my favorite old arcade titles. Tell me, what are some of your favorite Golden Age arcade games? What are some games you think don't get enough attention from back then? Have you played all the ones I showed you in this video? Tell me all about it in the comments. And that'll do it for this video, my retro gaming friends. If you enjoyed it, please like it and share it online somewhere. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my videos. If you want to support the work that I do here, then consider contributing to my Patreon or Ko-fi accounts, or right here on YouTube through super thanks and channel memberships. With that, I'll say thanks for watching, and see me later.